Hello, this is Bobby at Copel TV Repair, and this is a functionality proof video for Samsung power supply board BN94-00514A. This particular board was returned by an eBay customer who said the board, the reason for the return stated for eBay was doesn't work or defective, and the explanation was my TV does the same thing with your board as with my own one. And as we explained to that customer, and we keep repeating very commonly, the fact that when you replace a board, any board, inside any working system, and the system does not change behavior, may mean that the replacement board is bad, but it may also mean that the replacement board and the original board were good. And of course, replacing one functional board with another functional board would not change anything in a system that is broken. Something else is broken somewhere else. Now, I do have a functionality proof video, how to test video for BN94-00514A. You can search, I don't know if I will insert the link of that, but we do have a video on how to test this board. Or you can find a video on how to test 00513, 514, 515, 516. The process is pretty much all the same. What is different is the connectors that manipulate the board, but the flow of operation, the principles are 100% the same. So the only difference is where this connector is and the layout in the individual pins. Now we have this little jig here that does two things. Number one, it activates the board by sending ground, shorting ground, and the PS zone. You can find somewhere on that table where that is. So this pin, when it's shorted to ground, the board wakes up. Without when it's not shorted, the only thing out of that board, the only thing that works is that little transformer, and it outputs standby voltage. It does internally a few more things, but I mean, it has a voltage on the primary side that is needed to wake up the rest of the circuits, but those don't play. As long as you have standby voltage out of the board, that means that the circuit driving this guy is working fine. So what this little jig does is it grounds PS zone, and when that happens, a number of things happen on the board. The first and most important major one is the PFC circuit, the circuit that converts the rectified voltage from the AC mains. It gets rectified from this rectifier here. It gets multiplied by a factor of approximately 2, and so from 160 it gets raised to 390 volts, which appear here on the mains filter. They are not yet used to work to activate this transformer, so we have a little button here that is kind of hard to notice. It's an SMD button that is pressable, and when that is pressed, that in turn activates the circuit that drives this large transformer through those two transistors that are two commonly failing transistors on that board, in addition to the PFC circuit ones that are here. And as you can see on that board, they were all replaced. We replaced them on all boards that come here, regardless if they're failed or not, just because they tend to wear out with age and fail. Even if a board comes here that is fully functional and we buy it from somewhere, we always replace those because we don't want them to fail within a month or 2 or 3 when they get to a new customer. So every board that comes through here for service, if there is an exception, it would have been our fault. I cannot say that we never did it, but anyhow, I was trying not to talk about my... So when this gets activated, it produces the VS and VA voltages, which are the two highest voltages on the board. The board is rigged with checks and internal watchdogs for all kind of voltages, especially on the power voltage ones like this VS that is 210, 12, whatever it is voltages, and the VA, but also on many of the smaller ones. Most power supply boards, especially on the plasma TVs, anything that deals with high power, it has a lot of watchdogs internally to ensure that all the voltages are within the regulated ranges that are needed, because if they're not, that may indicate a problem in the board that risks power failure, possibly fire, all kind of problems. So those boxes are rigged with internal watchdogs, and the reason I say all this and the reason it is important is that if the board manages to produce the VS voltage here, usually you are pretty darn certain that everything else on that board is working. Theoretically, there is a possibility that this is not the case. For example, the board may be producing the high voltage but without load. So the really proper way to test all boards is with load on everything that it's supposed to feed. In real life, exceptions for those boards and most others, not all, but in real life, doing without load, measuring without load, gives you about 99.9 statistical percent accuracy. It does not give you 100%, but it is high enough to justify not doing it, because otherwise you'll have to spend so much more time. 99.9% of the time it will be fine, that it is worth to actually deal with the exception rather than make it as a rule. So what I wanted to show here is a board that first gives standby. I don't know if you will hear a click when this gets on. It's very quiet. The click comes from this relay here, and it is quiet, but it can be seen. And one of the ways, in addition to the click, to find out that something is happening is to measure that voltage here. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do, and by the way, this is my measuring device. What I'm going to do instead is just make sure that the VS voltage is present by measuring that here. The ground is there in the corner, and pressing that button. There it is. VS is 220 something volts. That pretty much tells me this board is functional, and the reason I'm making this video is the board arrived today, and by chance the same board was sold yesterday. I mean, the same type of board. We got an order. Instead of sending a different one, we're going to send straight this one. We're going to add today's date below this 9/15th, and this video can serve both for the customer who returned it saying that it was defective, and the one who just bought it knowing that we tested it. It's just a coincidence. We don't normally make videos when we send boards for the first time, but we'll treat the return of this one as a return as change of mind. We shouldn't be paying shipping costs in such cases, and we should be charging a restocking fee, because we have to make sure that every board that is returned to us is functional before we send it to another customer. That takes time, that involves some risks every now and then, so we do charge minimal service fee for that, like $10 whenever somebody returns a board like that. That said, refer the other video for possibly, I don't know, if I gave more details about the pins and what happens, how to activate this first PS onto ground, then sending 5.3 volts to the VS zone, and then VS and VA show up. I did not show VA here, but if it wasn't there, again, there are tons of watchdogs that will just shut off the board, and that's pretty much all that needs to be known to know that the board is functioning fine. That is all. Thank you very much.